I still said, oh, it says live now. Okay.
We
Hi,
are now
everyone. I am Comrade Nautica from the Ministry of Nerd Culture Expropriation, and we are here today to talk about moving towards a better atheism, acting on climate change, social justice, and economic justice. You can find my content on SoundCloud, Facebook, at SoundCloud, Facebook, and Patreon.com/NCE Ministry 2005. Now, we're here because there's a lot of bigotry from prominent atheists and in atheist circles. We've got racism, we've got Sam Harris and Charles Murray talking about race realism, and Sam Harris calling for a nuclear first strike against the Arab world and has advocated torture against the advice of everyone who's smarter than him on this topic. We have unscientific anti-trans talking points. This was discussed all the way back in 2014 on Zinnia Jones's YouTube channel. I think the title is something like Transphobia and Atheism. And then we have the recent video from Rationality Rules, Stephen Woodford, on trans athletes, which was full of junk science. We have misogyny. We have YouTube Atheism's hate boner for Anita Sarkeesian. Lots and lots of sexual harassment. Carl Benjamin's pro-rape comments and his not pro-rape. He said that he wouldn't rape an MP in the British Parliament, I think. And then we have the secular pro-life movement. Oh, and Carl Benjamin also defended a mass shooter that complained about not getting laid. So that's cool, I guess. We have ableism. We've got a lot of couching religious belief in terms of mental illness, and a lot of talk of eugenics, which is entirely fucked. Just don't do that. There's no need for it. And then finally, we have the defense of fascists by the likes of Seth Andrews and Matt Dillahunty by complaining about people getting milkshakes and fish thrown at them, who really deserve it because they want to harm and kill a lot of people. Basically, prominent atheists are aligning with Christian dominionists on political issues, ignoring the fact that those same dominionists are going to come for them as atheists as soon as they're done with Black and Indigenous people of color, trans people, queer people, and disabled people. We want something better from movement atheism. Bigot should not represent atheism. What atheists, skeptics, and secular humanists should be worried about, in my humble view, are these three things: climate change and environmental justice, because if we don't fix the climate, nothing else matters because we're all going to die. Social justice, and that is supporting Black and Indigenous people of color, trans people, queer people, disabled people, and immigrants. These are the people most harmed by religious institutions, so they should be the focus of atheist activism. And economic justice. This is just, I personally don't think that people should die because they don't have enough slips of green paper with dead guys on them. That's currency in the US. Currency other places is different, but that shouldn't be a thing, because everything that we do should be towards the end of, in my eyes, towards the end of proliferating happiness and decreasing suffering. And atheism as a movement is not doing that. Our goal is to create a unified front against bigotry and fascism in atheist and skeptic spaces based on the moral understanding that every person has inherent worth and dignity and deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, along with the scientific understanding that there are no empirical findings that affirm hatred for our fellow humans. And Alex, if you would like to introduce yourself, please do.
Let's see. My name is Alix Jules. I am a secular activist. I can usually be found. You can find me on Facebook. You can also find me Alex Alex331 on Twitter. I've also been a co-host on various podcasts. Others. I think I'm here because I think it's important that we really focus on the idea of what inclusion is. I don't know that we can ever fully eliminate, wouldn't that be amazing, to eliminate some of the really bad ideas that have taken hold of the current climate in I would argue that they've been here for a while now, for a long while now. I've been doing this for about 11 years, and it's always been here. It just tends to get hotter and colder in some areas. But I would really like to focus on the ideas around equality, the ideas around economic and restorative justice, the idea that I shouldn't have to argue against bad science still today, um, against people who simply aren't even qualified to have the other position or claim it as their own. Um, when I running this movement, it was quote unquote intellectually based, and I've been surrounded by anti-intellectualism for way too much. It's like, okay, there's just more opinion. It's Fox News Faithist, and it's really beginning to annoy me. Which is also why you don't see me as much as I used to be out there. So that is me. I will also plug Black Non-Believers. I am the organizer for Black Non-Believers in Dallas, but Mandisa Thomas is the core founder of Black Non-Believers International, which should be Black Non-Believers International, and she's really an alternative for people who need real spaces if you're Black, brown, and indigenous.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, I actually got a Black Non-Believers T-shirt from DragonCon in Atlanta in 2014. So I was really excited to see them there because I was really new to the atheist movement, and so seeing them there really excited me. So thank you for mentioning them and bringing them up. Next up, we have Bethany Turner.
Hi there. Yeah, I've been involved. Well, I say I've been involved in the atheist movement. I've been sort of on the periphery of the atheist movement. It's always been it's always been something that I followed, although never really actively participated in. I used to be a regular listener to the non-profits and the atheist experience, not so much lately. And one of the reasons that I wanted to be involved in this tonight, I mean, I don't have a huge amount of things to say, but one of the reasons that I wanted to be involved in this conversation tonight is because I just happened to tangentially mention the drama that's been happening recently with the whole with all the fallout from the rationality rules debacle, and I just happened to mention that to someone I know locally, and their response was basically, "Oh, well, that doesn't surprise me. That's just what the atheism movement's like." And this person's not a religious person. This is somebody who I think, under other circumstances, if the atheism movement was something that wasn't plagued with such nonsense, this is probably somebody who would identify as an atheist, but they identify as an agnostic because I don't think they want that label of atheism. They don't want the association that goes with it. So it's one of the things that they mentioned was their idea of atheism basically is people like Dawkins, who, really, really good science educator, but when it comes to religion and religious issues, he's the kind of person, and I think a lot of atheists suffer from this problem. They're so focused on being right that they forget to be human. And I think that's really quite damning that that's what the average person on the street thinks of the atheism movement. Like, we have not done a good job of getting a positive message out there, and I really think that needs to change. And if there's some way that I can be part of that change, I would like to be.
Cool. Yeah, I'm reminded of the atheist experience and how every time when they come on the show they do their spiel, and part of it is promoting positive atheism, and not a lot of that has been happening, unfortunately. Next we have Larry Yelling Man. What have you got for us, Mr. Yelling Man?
Hello. I have dogs apparently. 1 second.
Yay, puppers.
Oh well. Oh wow.
They have got a lot to say about this topic.
Oh, they're very passionate. They're very.
Pity we don't have a dog translator.
Anyway, hi. I'm Larry. I'm here to smile and not a lot.
Good stuff. Thanks.
Also,
we're glad you're here.
Also, I like to think my show is two things. The first and most important is a way to hang out with people who are amazing. The second is a show where people who do otherwise serious work can come to relax, take their pants off, and make fun of weird things going on for an hour or half an hour or whatever.
I'm wearing jean shorts, and it makes me happy. But
oh,
yeah.
Cool.
And now we have Steve, who's graciously offered his YouTube channel to host this panel discussion.
Yeah, hi everybody. Hi to everybody. Hi to everybody here, and hi to everybody in the chat who's watching live. Yeah, I'm kind of in Larry's situation where I if called upon, I certainly have opinions, but I'm mostly here to provide the space for the discussion and to sort of direct things visually. If you notice someone talking and then you don't see their face for a second, it's because I forgot to click their little picture, and that's why. That's why it's like, hey, wait a minute, why are we still looking? Not that anybody would mind looking at Alix, but why are we still looking at Alix when Bethany is talking? That's my fault. So I apologize for that. You'll notice I was right. I was Johnny on the spot when it was my turn. I just want to put it out there. But so yeah, I can just echo pretty much everything that's been said already. I am grateful to some of the people here and people who are watching, who I know are in the chat, who have helped to sort of drag me along and wake me up to some of the problems in this community. I feel like I've been awake to it for a while now, but I got there late compared to some other people. I know Alix in particular was one of the first people I knew who saw the train coming and was like, this is fucked. And everybody else was like, no, it's not as bad. And guess what? So yeah, thanks to everybody for being here. What? Go ahead.
This is later.
Yeah. But yeah, that's me. So hi.
Cool.
Honestly, if we're gonna go for the sleep metaphor, I feel like Rip Goddamn Winkle.
That's just because nobody woke you up, Larry.
Oh gosh. Well, I have this outline that I'm trying to follow, and next we have Alix to talk about racism and the fact that it has no place in atheist, skeptic, or secular humanist spaces. So, Alix, take it away.
Yeah. Well, it shouldn't have a space in secular spaces, but it does. It is something that I think as Steve kind of pointed out, I've been talking about it for a while now, because it's something that just exists. I have argued that being an atheist doesn't inoculate you to any of the other bad thinking that exists out there in terms of all the other cultural baggage that people inherit. So why would it necessarily relate to atheists and agnostics? Humanists should, right? Humanists should very much be anti-racist, not just non-racist, but actively anti-racist. And it's not something that I've found to be true, unfortunately, from just the tokenism that I experienced the very few years that I was passed around the circuit. It's like, hey, can we get the black guy to come talk to us about why there aren't enough Black atheists out there. That was the focus of, what people were talking about or asking me to talk about or lecture about. And then it became, how do we get them actively part of my response has been, you've first got to show yourself an ally. You've got to knock down the massive barriers that exist between people, regardless of what their core ideological foundations are. You've got to knock those off. Just because you're an atheist doesn't mean that you're going to cross the literal, in some cases, literal tracks to go and come and talk to me about my atheism or non-belief. And quite often the conversation around, why don't you come out to see me? Well, I can't come out to your neck of the woods because I'm racially profiled. So you've got to come out there and come see me. You've got to come talk to me. You've got to come do what's important to me. And unfortunately, various uh, various factions within the atheist movement don't see that. It's we get a lot of racism denial. It's almost flat earther level racism denial. It's not uncommon for me to get into, I'll start talking about a specific topic that's important to me or important to the Black community in general. And I'm not the ambassador for the Black community, but it's important. And the response is, well, why do you have to have Black non-believers? It's like, of everything that we've just talked about, you're stuck on the idea that non-believers that have the identifier Black, that label up top or to the side, that's where you find the offense, not the killing that galvanized the community, not the profiling that disrupts the community, not the poverty that impacts disproportionately the community, not the war on education, a literal war on education, raiding those communities of the funds to just not even be competitive, just to exist. So you don't want to talk about them, got them. You want to deny that the problem exists. Sometimes you may not know how to address them, and that's fine. I'm usually okay with that and and bringing people up to speed and being able to have those levels of conversation. But a lot of times I find that the hangups are just right there. It's why do you need you're not special. Like, well, oh, I didn't say I was special. I'm saying that I need a space for other people who don't necessarily have the level of trust, naivete, maybe, that I do in crossing into those other organizations. Um, it's not that I'm, it's part of my experience in general because, in my day job is, I'm in technology, so it's not uncommon for me to be the only Black person in the room, only Black person in the boardroom, only Black person in a conference, education setting, etc. It's not uncommon, and so I've learned to navigate the veil directly myself pretty well. But not everyone's doing that. Not everyone can do that. But just being able to move beyond that and just connect on a much deeper, more personal level. Sometimes you've got to give people space and room and time to understand what they're feeling before they can come talk to you about this. We may need people that look like us, sound like us, etc., and that can empathize or sympathize if necessary, empathize with what our experiences are without dealing with the constant, again, racism or that deal with on a constant basis. I shouldn't. I if walking into an atheist quote unquote safe space, which is what a lot of atheist organizations are supposed to be, safe spaces for atheists. I should be able to walk as a Black atheist, walk into a safe space, and not be assailed with questions like, "What are you doing about Black on white racism?" It's like, "What? Wait, what? Hi, my name is Alex, and that's the first question that you asked me, really?" Um, or someone wanting to quote Thomas Sowell and wanting to that have no cultural context, or want to immediately rock me back on my heels and talk about Sam Harris's diatribe with Murray, right? So it's unfortunate. It is a reality. It's that a lot of atheist spaces have become exactly that. And unfortunately, they have become sounding boards for even worse ideas. I remember when it was back in 2016, I was seeing, or 2014, 15, 16, when we were seeing Black Lives Matter as a very prominent movement. And what I was hearing from people was, well, why are you blocking lanes? There are better ways to protest, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What if you cost someone else's lives? And I remember this one particular conversation where this was a very ignorant comment to make, and ignorant as in you're devoid of any background, any cultural context at all, any history. But yet you feel empowered to have this conversation. It your opinion free. I talk about ball of the documentation, the books, the litany of academic work that goes around chronicling the Black experience, and then be put into a position of defending why Black Lives Matter protest the way that it does. And, oh, I'm an ally, I'm trying to help you, but I will not read any one of those books that you just put out there. I will do none of the work that's necessary to join you out in the street. I will do none of the work that's required in understanding what you are going through. But I lived next to a Black neighborhood, so I'm good. Um, and then again, this also echoes in other rooms and shadows within the atheist community. All you got to do is spend a little bit of time in the YouTube comments, and I've been on a couple, and the level of hate and vitriol that I get for expressing my opinion is just absolutely ridiculous. And it's just because I'm expressing who I am, what my experiences are, and I'm being called a racist. Yeah. So I would love a community, um, and I know they exist in really small pockets, very small pockets. Locally, I love my local, very local community. I wouldn't give that up for the world. They're there with me. When I went to my Trump rally, I had big giant 6 foot tall friend of mine who was to refuse to let me out of the house and in that rally without him first being there, because he was like, nope, you gotta be safe. So I'm gonna be there. and he was there. Locally, I found people like that, and that's wonderful. But that's not what I find everywhere. It's not what I find in the masses or in mass. It's and I think that if we're going to try and create bridges for not just the beachfront setters like me to go out there and try and plant seeds in these communities, you've got to focus on making those areas hospitable to and less corrosive to non-white skin. So, and I think that, as I said in 2016, with I think it was at Skepticon I said it, we've got a unified problem. Um, Stop attacking me because of my color when I'm trying to do exactly what you're doing now. I care about this list. A lot of the Black issues when it comes to human civility, human dignity, etc., are exacerbated because I am Black, but they're no less your problem. Um, but it's going to take a massive amount of real self-reflection for a community to turn it around. And I don't know um, how much or what it's going to take for it, again, in mass to be able to do that.
Beats the fuck out of me.
That's heavy stuff. And you know, I've heard a lot of what you said from other people of color, friends of mine, and it's terrible. And I've seen it in my direct action as well. It's just a nightmare, and it sucks that you're forced to deal with that. That it happens. It
Yeah.
shouldn't.
And it especially sucks that you're expected to deal with that from people who set themselves up on some kind of moral pedestal because they managed to answer one of the world's simplest questions.
Yeah,
I do have a question. I have a question if you're open to answering it.
absolutely.
Okay. I'm kind of, my opinions on this as I've healed from trauma that I've experienced with religious organizations are evolving. How do you feel about supporting religious organizations that are dedicated to ending white supremacy, ending colonialism, ending racial bigotry, that are religious in nature? I ask this from the perspective of my work with the Poor People's Campaign in Kansas, where a lot of the stuff was very spiritually based. Really, there was a lot of Christian undertones, like the good kind of Christianity, not the like Christian dominionism kind. And you know, it made me personally uncomfortable, but you know, I wanted to work on this project with these people anyways because they were doing the good work and not proselytizing. So what do you think about, what are your thoughts on that?
Um, I don't, okay, so I don't know that, at least for the African American community, we have Black non-believers or not. We just don't have the numbers. We simply just don't have the numbers in trying to make a difference in people's lives, depending on what your focus is. I learned this a few years ago. I was much more of a firebrand atheist, and I was going after some of the Black churches and the TD Jakes and company. And it was great. I felt good personally. My ego felt wonderful about it until I said, okay, great. I burned them. I got them. I got them. And then I was like, okay, now I've got this for outreach, feeding the hungry, feeding homeless. When we started talking about recidivism in jail and reform, all of a sudden, the ones that I burned are the ones that I needed, and I was like, okay, you've got numbers that the secular community just doesn't. You've got infrastructure that the secular community again just doesn't. It doesn't mean that they're any more or less better, etc. I'm not making that moral argument. It's just volumes and reach, depending on what you're trying to impact. I think that allyship should have an expiration date on it. I think that it's okay, and it's okay to do that, right? It is, it is, sometimes you're only as good as the last thing you did, and if the last thing you did was shoot me in the back of my head, you're probably not an ally. So doing interfaith or working with UUs, Universalists, Unitarian Universalists, sometimes I think it's necessary for humanistic endeavors. I just I had an issue with it at first. We do occasionally run into here locally with Christians that refuse to work with us, just outright. We'll try and partner, and the only requirement is you don't get to process. We won't do any of that, but you don't get to proselytize and do prayer, etc. Let's just go do the Lord's work without the extra stuff. And sometimes that just doesn't work out. And I would never subject someone to having to work with someone like that. But sometimes you have to make the personal decision, what's the greater good for you and how much you're willing to put yourself out there, because you can't pour from an empty glass, right? So you've got to be able to save some of you for you.
Cool. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. It's something that I've been struggling with lately. And, you mentioned Unitarian Universalists. One denomination I want to put out there that's very Christian, but they're good people, is United Church of Christ. I think is a good denomination that atheists and skeptics should be willing to team up with. And if I remember right, Americans United for the Separation of Church and State is headed up by a religious figure, clergy member. I seem to remember that being a thing. It's kind of vague. I haven't researched it since hearing about it, but I think that at the end of the day, it's about like teaming up and getting the work done, and then just like if what someone is doing isn't hurting other people, just let them be, I guess is how I feel about the activism allyship thing from my perspective as someone who's disabled and trans. So it's a complicated issue, and there's a lot of nuance involved, I think, and case by case basis stuff. And it seems like a lot of skeptics want this like one silver bullet of how everything should work, and if it doesn't fit that narrative, they just cut it off and cast it aside.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Do you have anything else you want to say, or are you cool if we move on to Bethany?
Oh, I'm good. Yep.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. That was all. It was really heavy, but it was good to get it out there. So yeah, what area did you want me to focus on, Brandy?
I'm having problems muting and unmuting my microphone. I just wrote a generic topic line that was just like anti-queer and anti-trans bigotry has no place in atheist, skeptic, and secular humanist spaces, and you know, I mean, we talked about, you know, some stuff you could talk about. So you
Sure.
do your thing.
Well, I mean, obviously we got the recent thing with Rationality Rules, who he for those who don't know, Rationality Rules is a YouTube channel. Brandy, what's the guy's real name? Something Woodford, isn't it?
Stephen Woodford.
Stephen Woodford, that's the one. Yeah, he put out this video which was woefully scientifically inaccurate about trans women in sports. And he was coming down, he was trying to construct an argument. I want to use the term white knighting for what he was trying to do. Does that sound about right?
That it does. It sounded very nice guy in favor of cis women.
Yeah, because he was trying to argue that that trans women have some kind of physical advantage in sport, and therefore, if trans women are allowed to participate in women's sports, it will mean that no cisgender women can. And by cisgender women, of course, he was, you know, very subtly saying, quote unquote, real women. I'm not on camera, so you can't see me doing finger quotes, but I assure you I am. Thanks, Brandy. So yeah, he was concern trolling, to use another term, about the future of women's sport if trans athletes are allowed to compete. And this is stuff that Zinnia Jones talked about in a video like, what, 4 or 5 years ago?
2014. It's the same video I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, 2014. So it's only 5 years ago now that Zinnia Jones already talked about this. And it's like, okay, he did release an apology video, which was not great. In which he went back and corrected some things, apparently. But here's the thing: if he had actually bothered to do a cursory amount of research to begin with, he wouldn't have made those mistakes in the first place, which implies to me that, I don't know, maybe he was allowing his prejudice to guide what he wanted to say, more so than, you know, going where the evidence leads, if that's, you know, a lot of people who, you know, claim the label rational for themselves will say that they are about following the evidence where it leads, and that didn't appear to be what he was doing in his video. And he's not the only person in the secular community who's like this. Sam Harris has had transphobic guests on his show before, and he's smiled and nodded and laughed along with them while they're making horrendously transphobic comments. And heck, there was I remember a few years ago, because, I mean, the reason I know Alix at all is because I was a big fan of him when he was on Dogma Debate some years back. That's how I first came to know Alix. And honestly, it's probably, among with Callie Wright, probably one of the best things to come out of that show for me.
Agreed.
Yeah, David Smalley had he had a guy on the show, Blake Junter, that was his name. He was a Christian apologist who Smalley would have on the show quite frequently. And I remember one occasion where, I don't think this was even all that related to the topic they were talking about, but he just came out with some random transphobic guff about again, finger quotes, boys saying that they're girls so they can go into the girls' locker rooms in gym class. And, you know, Smalley, who claimed to be an ally, he was always claiming he was an ally, rather than challenging Junta on this, was just like, yeah, you know, just kind of smiling and making lots of agreeable sounds in response to that, and it's and you've got recently someone I was really disappointed in, Aaron Ra, who I've met the guy in person, and he was lovely in person, but you know, he goes and has a few beers with Steve Woodford after this recent controversy, and you know, he's making jokes about it, like oh, look at me, look at how controversial I'm being, having beers with this guy. And I'm like, dude, I thought better of you. And it's just, it's really disappointing and frustrating that these people I've spent years looking up to, just, well, they turn out to be not very good allies when you need it. And yeah. And it's like, it's not good enough to just not be transphobic when you're still hanging out with transphobic people and defending them. And yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, that's...
Yeah, you go ahead.
As far as I'm concerned, that's like, you know, the adage about the 11 guys at a table and one of them's a Nazi and the rest of them are cool with him being at the table. That's a table of 11 Nazis. So, yeah, and I don't like to, I don't use that term lightly. Like, this is, to me, it's showing support for Christian dominionism because they're accepting their premise of what they claim about gender and sexuality. Most of the time, just gender with regard to trans people not actually existing because reasons, but sometimes also with regard to sexuality because they're afraid. And this is more like background noise that some atheists are afraid that gay atheists will make them look bad, which, fuck that. We don't need that.
I'm inclined to suggest that transphobic and homophobic atheists make them look bad.
Yeah. I wrote this whole spiel on rationality rules, and I'm just going to run through it right quick, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so this is a message directly for Stephen Woodford. You did your trans women in sports video at a time when being an anti-trans rationalist on YouTube is incredibly lucrative. Your previous videos demonstrated your agreement with the anti-trans talking points of Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson, both of whom are supporting this religious extremism that's getting us killed. You are not a trans ally for these two reasons alone. I know you're in the UK, so you might not know this, but here in the US, there is a new piece of bad news at least once a week about how the federal government is trying to make our lives miserable, about how the federal government is trying to strip our access to human rights. And I'm always hearing about some other trans person who's committed suicide, and I'm seeing a lot of black trans women being murdered in the streets in cold blood, and I'm seeing, you know, a lot of us sinking deeper into anxiety and depression. And the only thing that's gotten me out of that is fighting against this wave of anti-trans bigotry. In your apology, you roll out a couple of token trans friends who agree with you. That's a shitty move. In your correction video, your pinned comment, when I saw it on the video, was basically you saying what amounts to, wait, y'all, I'm still transphobic. Please don't unsubscribe to me. And so basically, you are wrong. The science says so. Lots of sporting orgs say so. Admit you're wrong and give it up. Spend this energy fighting climate change, racism in atheist spaces, and transphobia in atheist spaces. Otherwise, shut the fuck up.
I've also heard it suggested that that Woodford doesn't think he doesn't think he didn't realize that that transphobia was such a big deal in America, which I'm like, Jesus, are you not even looking at the news? he didn't think it was such a big deal over there because it's not such a big deal over here. I respectfully disagree. The feminist appropriating radical transphobe movement.
Reactionary transphobe. They are not radical.
Reactionary transphobe. Thank you. They have got quite a presence in the UK. They tried to sabotage, I believe, London Pride last year, and I've dealt with people like that who I knew personally, and not to mention, I basically lost a job because I'm transgender. So transphobia is alive and well in the UK. So I don't buy that excuse when he says, "Oh well, we're just a bit more progressive over here." We're really not in so many ways. Yeah, we're not as religious over here, but there are so many other ways where we are not a progressive country. So I just don't buy that from him.
On the bright side, though, Graham Linehan no longer exists because of Donkey Kong. Because of
Oh wow, that was a cool thing that H Bomber guy did with
H Bomber guy. Yeah, H Bomber guy is doing allying right.
So is Steve. So is Larry. So is Alix.
Absolutely.
I just give to Patreon pages and sometimes like Facebook friend people. That's about all I do.
Well, I'm gonna talk about how people can be better allies in a little bit. I want to go through. I did a few polls in some of the trans groups that I'm in, and I was asking them that, do you want me to talk about just the hard science related to trans people? Do you want me to talk about the atheist talking points and that they use against trans people, or do you want me to talk about how you can support and love the trans community? And it was a pretty even split between hard science and talking points. So I'm gonna do that. I talked about a lot about this in my podcast on transphobia and atheist spaces, and oh gosh, I got a long list of notes. Okay, so first, lots of atheists claim that being trans is a mental illness or disorder, and this is fucked up because it suggests that people who have mental health issues don't deserve rights. Why are you going to do that? That's everything about...
You also find a lot of atheists trying to claim that believing in God is a mental disorder.
Yes, and that is completely fucked. It's intellectually lazy. It harms people who actually do experience mental illness, and you just shouldn't do it.
Yep.
And being trans isn't a mental illness. And literally every respectable medical and mental health organization worth their weight in salt, has said such. It's not in the DSM. It's not something that the American Psychiatric or American Psychological Association say is a mental disorder. And just stop with this nonsense.
I mean, near as I can tell, the only thing that all trans people have is a GoFundMe page.
Yeah, that's true, because we have a hard time finding and keeping work, because people are like, the companies during Pride Month, wave their rainbow flags, and then they're like, screw you, queer people, we're not going to fucking hire you.
Ooh.
So yeah, that's the thing that happens. There's the argument from supposed biological reality. I call this argumentum ad bepis, or argumentum ad vagalu fallacy. A cigar is just a cigar, and a penis is just a penis. It's not male, it's not masculine. And the same goes for what are traditionally considered female primary and secondary sex characteristics. Transition care relies on the same biological pathways hormone replacement therapy does that cis people rely on for puberty. So, I mean, it's just we're doing the hormones help. Before I was on HRT, my life was a Lovecraftian nightmare where every waking moment I felt like my skin was crawling, and it felt like I just would want to rage and Hulk out at nothing. And it wasn't good for me. It wasn't good for anyone around me. And when I transitioned, I became a infinitely better person. So this argument is used to restrict access to restrooms and locker rooms. And there's a branding thing here. Men and women's restrooms sounds a lot more scary than trans women in women's restrooms. And then there's the sports thing we talked about. Go ahead, Larry. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. Also, this is technically your show, so I was just gonna say I've never understood the bathroom freak out, even as an argument, because literally everyone's bathrooms in their houses are monogendered or unisex or whatever.
So is the grave of Ronald Reagan.
Also, unisex bathrooms are very common in places like France, and they don't have any problems with it.
But there's all the French people.
Of course, I understand using an argument that the French are doing something is probably not going to convince a lot of Americans. Probably not a lot of British people, for that matter.
I mean, and honestly, if they're worried about people being sexually assaulted, they should, actually go after people who commit sexually assault. Or sexual assault. So yeah, that'd be a thing that they can do. Relying on lessons from your high school biology textbook to invalidate trans people is fallacious, because lessons at that level are designed to teach you the basics. Generally speaking, yes, people with XY chromosomes are male and people with XX chromosomes are female, and that they mostly identify with the gender they were assigned at birth. That's not the case for everyone, and shaping your language to be inclusive of that fact costs you nothing.
Also, most people never get themselves genetically tested to find out what chromosomes they have anyway.
Exactly.
But inclusive language is weird.
No, it's not. It's easier, actually. Because
it really is.
One example is, saying boys and girls, or using the pronoun he or she all the time. You could just use singular they, or you could say people when referring to a group of people. It's not that hard. And also, if you are not willing to change your behavior or your thought process when new information presents itself, you are not a good skeptic or a good person. That's just how it works. There's also concern trolling about, doctors needing to know our real gender in order to properly care for us. And if you're not a healthcare professional treating a trans patient, shut the fuck up. It's useless. We don't need that. And I would argue that if a healthcare provider isn't willing to provide a trans person with emergency or routine medical care not related to their transition, they need to find a new career. Then you've got the free speech argument and saying that, well, we should be able to refer to trans people as whatever we want to, because that's just biological reality. It comes back to that thing. And
by that logic, people should be free to harass people on the basis of free speech.
Yeah. When you misgender a trans person, we generally roll our eyes and move on. And we can tell pretty quick if it was an accident or if it was malicious. And all it does is make us not want to engage with you. So that's limiting our free speech. Oh gosh, where was I going with this?
I have no idea, but while you're finding out, I'll just do some music. Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello, ragtime gal. Send me a kiss by wire. Baby, my heart's on fire.
But you keep going. Okay, so basically, there's a lot of research that shows that respecting a trans person's name and pronouns from a youngest age as possible, as soon as they tell someone that they are not the gender they were assigned at birth, respecting their name and pronouns from the earliest age possible and as many spheres of their life as possible leads to better outcomes. This is science. And you can't, as an intellectual person, you can't reject science. These are in the guidelines for treating trans people with dignity and respect, as according to the American Psychiatric Association. And I kind of want to do this thing where I've seen far too many atheists just post this meme that's a picture of a trans person laughing that says laughs in 41% suicide rate. And it's fucked up, number one, but if you actually gave a damn about the well-being of trans people, you'd be asking how you can reduce that number to levels comparable to the general population instead of using it as a talking point to describe why you think trans people don't deserve rights. We constantly have to defend our existence against bad faith bigots and free speech absolutists who always seem to have the strength to defend the fucking fascists, but never uplift the voices of the people they are harming. That's part of the reason why so damn many of us attempt suicide. And another reason we're suicidal is because we live in a world where attacking us and treating us like shit is the norm. Maybe stop treating us like shit, and that number would drop like the Titanic against a fucking iceberg. And that's for you, Stephen Woodford. I know you're probably going to watch this and, try to do a debunking video or whatever, because you're an ass.
Yeah, I don't get why it's so hard to treat, well, anyone really, but especially trans people with basic fucking dignity and respect.
Yeah. So
Like,
so
say not misgendering y'all and actually letting y'all do sports.
yeah. Yeah.
Which, wow, now that I say it out loud, letting do sports, that just seems, something seems very wrong with that phrase.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
having
I
this-
mean, it's the nail on the head of the way it is. Like, cis people are, why is my alarm going off?
And why don't I have that ringtone?
I actually took that from the OST and cut it up in Audacity because I'm a nerd and I like nerdy shit on my phone. I don't want to just end this on me saying all the bad things that atheist transphobes are doing and why they're bad. I do also want to talk about what atheists should be doing. I'm not taking too long, am I? I don't feel like I've been on very long doing this. I'm just about done. Am I good?
You're good.
Okay, affirmations are needed. Thank you. Okay, so what atheists should be doing is, and this is what they should be doing. This text that I wrote is specified on trans people, but they should really be doing this for all victims of bigotry, especially those who are victims of religious extremism. Defend trans people against the hatred spread by Christian dominionists like Vice President Mike Pence. It's not, if you're in the United States, it's not your job to worry about what's going on in fucking Saudi Arabia. Certainly do what you can about it, but focus on the terrorism and the extremism that's happening right here. And if you're in the UK, focus on the UK. Focus on shit where you're at. Don't kick us while we're down. That's what a lot of atheists seem to be doing. You know, we've got the Trump administration, you know, trying to restrict our access to healthcare, trying to restrict our access to homeless shelters, trying to restrict our access to housing, and you know, and trying to define trans people out of existence. And there's no need for this anti-trans bigotry. If you really want to have these discussions, wait till our rights are enshrined in law, if you really need to have them. So there goes your free speech argument that I'm actually, you know, not trying to restrict you from having these fucked up discussions. Respect our names and pronouns. Purposefully misgendering trans people is not free speech. It is hate speech. It is speech specifically designed to keep us from engaging and speaking up to defend ourselves. And, you know, provide for our physical and emotional needs. Like Larry said, all of us have a GoFundMe for something. So, you know, we have higher rates of workplace and housing discrimination that make it harder for us to meet our basic needs. If you are a middle or upper class white atheist, consider opening your home to a trans person to help them get on their feet. It'd be really appreciated because a lot of us are rejected by our families for religious reasons. So if you're gonna be an atheist and you're gonna claim to fight, there's more to fighting religious extremism than just dunking on creationists. There's other things that need done. You know, creationists have been dunked on. They are soaked. It's done. Stop it.
Creationists is such an easy target to dunk on as well. I mean, it's not hard to debunk their ideas.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why so many YouTube atheists do it, because it's
right?
easy money for them.
Right. And to quote something that Stephen Woodford said, instead of, you know, you go for the low fruit of creationism, now it's time to reach for the higher fruit of what religious extremism is actually doing to people in their everyday lives.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to us and affirm us. We live in a world that is constantly silencing and invalidating us, and it takes a toll on our mental health. All of the arguments that I just went through are all arguments I had used against me over the past couple weeks in the ACA Facebook group. So, yeah, that's a thing. If your family is going out for dinner, consider inviting us along. From my own personal experience, my parents, my family of origin was super abusive, and me cutting them off had nothing to do with them, you know, hating me because I was trans. That was like, they didn't care that I was trans, but they were messed up in a whole lot of other ways. And I have what I affectionately refer to as a mom friend and a dad friend now, and they call me their friend daughter, and just having that support has made my life so much better. Like, you know, having the love and support and the stability of, you know, knowing that you've got family, that if everything falls down, you know, you've got people around you to help pick you back up. That has made all the difference in the world for me. And that's the only reason I'm here talking to you now, you know? So, because I'm living with someone who's, you know, stoking my creativity and trying to, you know, encourage me to get out there and do things and, you know, do what I do best and, you know, just try to make the world a better place. So that's, I mean, that's a personal thing, but I think that, you know, part of being a humanist, you know, my podcast centered on humanism is titled Secular Emphasis on Humanism, is, you know, treating people with dignity and respect and love and kindness and compassion and you know, all those buzzwords that center on being a decent human being. And finally, correct others when they misgender us, especially when we're not around to hear it. That's when we need it the most.
Yep.
I mean, it's nice when somebody misgenders me and I get, you know, I have somebody to back me up and say, hey, no, her pronouns are she and her, you know, call her ma'am. That's great. But it's really necessary when we aren't around. Shut it down. Treat anti-trans bigotry like you treat young earth creationism, because it's on that level. So that's what I've got. I hope I didn't take too long or whatever. I have a lot to say and I have a lot of feels, and yeah.
You're fine.
So I saw Detryck in the chat. Is he going to be on?
He hasn't said anything recently. He said he was going to try to come in after he got sort of settled in. I think he just got home from work, but he hasn't posted anything in the last few minutes, so I'm not really sure.
Okay. I'm gonna I guess we can move into like the open forum, you know, where we talk about some of the issues that, you know, that I mentioned, like, you know, climate change and social and economic justice, you know, and focusing on solutions to what we can do. So, Steve and Larry, you've been kind of quiet, and that's kind of by design, which
I have.
And once again, Steve, I want to thank you so much for allowing us access to this platform. It really means a lot to me personally, and I know that it's gonna. I have a feeling. I have a good feeling that aside from the trolls who are going to do your takedown videos, I have a feeling this is going to be something really good and positive for people who really need it. So thank you for that.
It is literally the least that I can do. And I mean, I could make videos about how I like cats, and trolls would make takedown videos. So
Yeah.
like, it makes no fucking difference to me what the trolls say about what I do at this point.
Yeah. That's kind of where I'm at. So.
Yeah. And your talk there was just amazing, by the way. That whole thing was terrific. And all I can do is just say, yeah, what she said, you know?
I mean, same.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, if I've been thinking about what everybody has been saying, and, you know, as a cis white hetero guy who, you know, this hangout has gone the way I hoped it would, where I've mostly just sat and listened while people with more expertise and more experience on these issues than I have had the floor and spoken, you know, their experience, which is something that doesn't happen in atheist spaces nearly as often as it needs to, and nearly as often as it should. So I'm glad that that's how this has gone. And I mean, I would be happy. I think it would be a significant improvement for the atheist movement as it currently exists if we would just stop missing the easy shots. You know, there are issues that are complicated, right? And a lot of what atheists do, a lot of what our sort of most popular voices do when confronted with issues like the ones we've been talking about, is they appeal to complexity. And there are some complex situations. There are times where, for instance, because one of the times that this is cited most often is when people are talking about Islam, and people say, well, but you know, who decides what is legitimate critique of Islam, and when does it cross over into Islamophobia? And there are not as many as people say, but I think there are legitimate areas where the line is fuzzy, right? But there are also super easy shots. Transphobia is an easy one. Transphobia is such an easy one. Treat trans people like people. Treat trans people with equality. Treat trans people with respect. Call trans people by their right name like you would anybody else. Like that's so easy. When you see other people not doing that, don't put up with it. You know what? Like, tell them, hey, no, call her by her name. You know, don't call her by what you think her name is. Call her by her name. That's the same respect that you would be due from anybody. That's just basic human society level respect. Call people by their right names. Treat people with the respect that you would want them to treat you with. And the fact that there are people in the atheist community who either don't do that themselves or are okay with other people doing it and will still hang out with them or platform them or celebrate them, or will look the other way because they agree with them about the other 90% of what they say. Like, to me, that's missing an easy shot.
Yes.
Like that's just missing an easy shot. You
Yes.
know? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just agreeing.
Oh, you were just agreeing. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I don't understand why we miss why we miss so many easy shots, and why we blame the people who are pointing out the problems instead of the people who are causing the problems. I really feel like things would be obvious. There are problems, as in any community, in any social movement. Nothing is ever going to be perfect. There are always going to be issues that are overlooked that shouldn't be overlooked. There are always going to be people who aren't listened to, who should be listened to. We're never going to completely solve all those problems, but some of this stuff is so goddamn easy. And it's just frustrating to see people who get it 99% of the time, but then when the person who fucks up is a friend of theirs, all of a sudden it's, well, let's just hear him out. Oh, yeah. He apologized. Let's accept his apology, even if it was like a half-assed apology. You know, where like oh
my God, I fuck a balloon one time and I never.
Larry, we're not bringing our personal shit into this.
I already said I apologize to his family.
Just keep our personal shit out of this, please. My father has never been the same. Anyway, I
do want to talk a bit about climate change, and I do want to do a call to action. Okay, so with regard to climate change, like I'm not as knowledgeable as I should be, and I'm trying to rectify that. What we do know is, and what I can cite is, that 100 companies do 70% of carbon emissions, and it's mostly fossil fuel companies. And we should be treating them like we treat creationists as well, because they're funding all the climate change denial stuff. We need to be focused on supporting renewable energy, nuclear power, solar power, wind power, and while personal actions are helpful, like recycling and driving a green car and stuff like that, we need to be focused on the big picture. I want to move into talking about direct action now. There are a lot of different types of direct action, and we should be deplatforming and throwing milkshakes at and egging these various people who support these things. We should be targeting white supremacists, anti-choicers, fascists, transphobes, homophobes, and climate change deniers.
Those are all the same people you just mentioned.
I mean, I know it's like a Venn diagram that's mostly a circle, but there are some pro-choice white supremacists, I guess. So why should we be doing this? Because there's no both sides to certain issues, and the people we should be targeting are the people who are definitely factually wrong and immoral, and in that they are perpetuating harm and rejecting the premise that all humans have inherent worth and dignity. By the way, I'm running on two basic premises here: that all humans have inherent worth and dignity, and that all people deserve self-determination and bodily autonomy. So types of direct action, we've got deplatforming, we've got sit-ins, you could offer jail support, you could offer legal aid, And especially if you are a lawyer, you know, or know of a law firm who would be interested in supporting people who are engaging in direct action on these issues, you know, definitely get involved. We'd really appreciate it. Also, black bloc style protesting, you know, use a diversity of tactics. When you do something, plan as much as you can. Try to think of all the contingencies that you can. Think about the optics and practice what you're going to tell the media. Stay on message when you do this. And for anyone saying that, you know, this is too far or this is, you know, you're being just as bad as they are, history attests to the effectiveness of direct action. Do not let people tell you otherwise. You've got the Compton cafeteria riots, you've got Stonewall, you've got the Dockham sit-in, you've got the punch heard around the world back in 2017, and you've got the Unite the Right rally too, and the failures of Patriot Prayer and Proud Boys. So when you're doing direct action, work with existing organizations, even religious ones, as long as they're focused on doing the work and not proselytizing. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Join up with interfaith orgs in your area, because I can promise you that the interfaith orgs are definitely not going to be trying to proselytize to people. You know, and don't do the validation gang thing. I'm not here as a person trying to get likes. I'm here trying to do this to get people involved as a call to action. Stick to good ideas, not people. You know, and I mentioned the Poor People's Campaign earlier. We tried something like that in the late 1960s, and then Martin Luther King was assassinated, and it just kind of knocked all the wind out of its sails. And we need to be focused on good ideas and not cults of personality. So that's what I wanted to say about climate change and about direct action. The direct action bit refers to both climate action and action with regard to social and economic justice. So that's what I've got. I just thank you for letting me get that out of my system.
Can I offer a slightly unpopular opinion?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, hear me out.
I think I just a lot.
You did, and honestly, I loved every second of it. I'm worried about fascists. They seem don't they all seem a little pale and like calcium deficient to y'all?
Yeah, I've been noticing that a bit myself. I'm thinking we should
buy them all milkshakes.
Buy them all milkshakes delivered in a good solid overarm arc.
Lactose the intolerant.
Yep.
I'm very
milkshakes for shit takes.
Yes. Yes.
Steve, how did you not beat us to that?
I was, if one of you wanted to say it, I trusted that you would say it.
Yes.
You know what? I did beat you to it. I put it in a video this morning.
Exactly.
Yes, you did.
I did beat you to it.
Exactly.
Can I just point out if people wouldn't feel the need to throw eggs and milkshakes at fascists if they had not been so emboldened over the last few years.
Yeah. Yeah. Like on the one side, you've got people who are actively organizing and trying to perpetuate genocide. Now on the other, you got people throwing eggs and milkshakes at people who are trying to organize genocide. And I'm just like, how are people defending the I can't fathom it. You know, my great grandpappy fought in the Battle of the Bulge, and I want to follow in his footsteps as an anti-fascist super soldier. So, you know, that's a shout out to my Kiwi Farms followers. I love rent free in their head.
Go ahead, Bethany.
I was just going to say there was a cartoon that showed up on my Facebook timeline, a comic that was about. It was about what happens when you agree to debate with these far right extremists. I'm just scrolling through now to see if I can find it. There it is. It starts off with a panel. It's got two people meeting in the middle, shaking hands, a couple of guys in suits. So debates are often viewed as two opposing sides finding common ground in the middle. And then the next panel has a guy on top of a hill under a banner that says civil rights, and his opponent down a hole at the bottom of the hill under a banner that says genocide. And it goes on to say, however, this framework presumes both viewpoints are valid and equal, when in reality, not all viewpoints are or should be considered as such. And the final panel, it has the two of them standing, it's got the two of the podiums on the same level, being treated as equals. They're meeting in the middle, shaking hands under a banner that says murder. And it concludes, and sometimes when you concede ground to meet in the middle, you still end up losing. And that is something that I wish more people in the atheism and skeptic community would realize, that there's a lot of, like what Brandeis was saying about free speech absolutism in the atheism and skeptic community, where they're like, oh, all opinions are equally valid and equally deserving of discussion and debate. And I have to think we've got to draw the line somewhere before the murder of an entire people. And when you do, I mean, when you do debate people like that, it legitimizes them.
I totally agree with that. I want to take a moment to ask Alix. Alix, do you have anything you want to talk about? You still with us?
Alex may have taken a break.
Oh,
there he is.
There he is.
Oh, yeah.
Nope.
You're
I'm here.
clicking in and out.
No. I mean, y'all have covered almost all of it, especially milkshakes for fascists. But this is, I mean, people have asked me, what do I think, of milkshakes, and one, I'm very surprised it hasn't caught on here in the U.S. just yet. I think I shared it only happening one time so far, in the fact that Mitch McConnell is still walking around with the clean suit is just surprising to me. But am I pro milkshake? Am I anti milkshake? I think I said I give people permission to throw as many milkshakes as they need to at the car that their engine and aiming at me while I'm protesting their fascism, because that is something that they tend to overlook. I mean, Heather Heyer was killed literally nonviolent, just, and she was paid back with murder. And the same people that continue, especially in this moment, that continue to talk about 6-year-old behavior and hand wringing, and it is violent, assassinate. It is what was it? It is role playing of assassination. I'm like, this is ridiculous. But of course, when you hear about what people are actually protesting against, absolute silence. And I don't know whether it's fear. I mean, I've gotten into conversations where it's easy to pick on the lefties. What are they going to do? Throw milkshakes at you? Versus on the Aryan Brotherhood, and you just have a slight tan, what that might be. And if so, then what does that say about your moral character and your stance? So it's really easy to pick on the lefties because you can. Yeah, shakes for everyone. Let them sit out. Don't throw a good milkshake out. I mean, just if it's a really good milkshake, just at least take like half of it down, let it sit like the day out, right? And when it's ready when the gnats let you know it's ready. That's
Nice.
I approve this message.
We here at we here at the Human Tolerant News Podcast approve of this message.
That's beautiful.
For legal reasons, all of this is a joke. We're just joking. It's just memes, y'all.
Yeah, totally.
But
it's all a joke.
Yeah.
Alex brings up a really good point, which is think of all the people, especially in the atheist community, right? Who have concern troll about milkshakes and have little to nothing to say about white supremacists or fascists. I mean, like, don't open their fucking mouth. about that. Or if they do open their mouth about it, it's all you people who are going to protest. Now you behave yourselves. You know?
But Steve, it's current year. The Nazis are gone. They have been gone since 1940, whenever. Since
1945, Larry. Don't you know when World War II ended?
Doesn't matter.
I'm sorry. I love Larry. I give Larry a hard time because, you know, but I love Larry. Because I'm not intimidated by him.
Yeah, actually, tell you what, while we're here, after that last Steven Stuffy video, I am here to publicly concede the title of Self-Hating Cis Champion of the Year to Steve, because I cannot top that. Holy shit.
It's not up to me, though. It's not up to me. You can't, I mean, I think it doesn't Rissy decide that? Hasn't she been granted the power to bestow that title?
I'm pretty sure she decides that, yes.
Yeah, she does, but like there are times when you see something so utterly profound that you just have to step back and be like, nope, can't beat that. Nope.
That's really nice of you to say, but like, I mean, there's part of that makes me kind of sad because, like, I mean, I'm really glad that people like that Steve and Stuffy video that I put up today, and I'm really glad that a lot of trans people are commenting and saying that they liked it. Like, that's super. That really makes me feel good. But I mean, it makes me sad that it something like that gets that kind of reaction when basically all that is a cis guy saying, I don't know, maybe we should treat trans people like people. Like,
the sad part is sometimes it takes a cis guy talking about this sort of thing to make people listen.
Yeah, that is sad.
Yeah.
And it's just basic stuff. Like, it's so like we should just all be doing this. Like, this is, I keep going back to easy shots. It's just, these are easy shots and people keep missing easy shots. People in the atheist community keep missing layups. And it's like, just give the ball to somebody else. If you're going to miss the fucking layup, give the ball to somebody else, you know?
I appreciate all the sports ball references. They make me happy.
And I'll be honest, as someone who is both metaphorically and physically completely not a sports type person, I'm grateful to be on the court. I'm grateful.
There you go. You made a sports reference.
There you go.
Oh, wait. Or should I be more like nerdy and say, I'm grateful to be on the court ball hoop stick.
Ironic sports fandom.
I do want to ask Steve and Larry, have you been keeping an eye on the chat?
A little bit.
Okay. Have there been any good questions asked that you feel like we haven't covered?
There was one about securing a future for white children that.
Fuck that.
Jeez.
Fuck that.
Actually, let's go ahead and put it out there. If anybody watching live and you're in the live chat, if you have any questions for the panel, just go ahead and throw them in, and me and Larry will keep an eye out for them, and we can answer some questions here in the last segment, I guess. If anybody. No Nazi questions. Larry was kidding.
Yeah, yes, please, no Nazi questions.
I had a thing I wanted to say, but I can't remember what it was.
Now, if y'all want to ask me some World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy questions, then feel free.
I was on Final Fantasy 11 back before Chains of Promathia got nerfed, and I beat the Chains of Promathia storyline as a white mage. So I'm the only real gamer here.
So what you're saying is white power.
Oh no,
Larry.
Steve, you said we shouldn't miss the layups. Steve.
You're just looking for a reason to be offended, Larry. You're exactly what they say we are.
Well, while we wait for questions to come in, you know, I want to like kind of do some closing thoughts. The world is on fucking fire, in the words of Bill Nye. When I did my podcast, I accidentally said Bill Maher, and you can hear a clip where I clipped out Maher because I meant to say Nye instead of Mar, and for some reason Mar came out, which I feel sorry. Sorry, Bill Nye, for insulting you. Like,
talking of trashy atheists.
Yeah. Fuck you, Bill Maher. You know, and I'm Comrade Nautica. You know, I'm a disabled trans person. You know, and building the Ministry of Nerd Culture Expropriation to help have a platform for trans people to get their stuff out. So that's the thing I'm doing. You can find my content on YouTube by searching for Comrade Nautica. You can find my my meme page on Facebook, Patreon, SoundCloud, all of those .com/NCE Ministry 2005. Get involved with local groups, like I said, even if they're religious, as long as they're focused on environmental justice, social justice, and economic justice, and fighting imperialism and colonialism, all that stuff. Support marginalized people with time, money, and resources. Center Black, trans women, and non-binary people with your activism. Have standards. Call out bigotry and shut it down. Use your privilege to make spaces safe for marginalized groups. Deflatform climate change deniers and bigots the way Antifa does with fascists. And as Steve says, speak out, act out, resist, and look after each other. And once again, the world's on fucking fire. Do something about it. Those are my closing thoughts.
Okay. If you want to keep going, I do have some questions from the chat.
Okay, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, first is from William Clapp. I'm assuming this one's to Steve because Star Trek.
Oh,
What?
This is okay. Go ahead, but it's not a Star Trek hangout.
All right. What? Okay. Why does Picard have to stand up for Data? Why can't the Federation secure his rights without having a debate about it? Which is to say, why is there bigotry and racism in the first place?
Okay, so this I'm gonna try to make this so that it's somewhat relevant to the topic of the hangout. No Star Trek questions from now on, please, because it's not a Star Trek hangout. The reason that racism and bigotry exists in Star Trek, even though it's the future where supposedly all of the problems have been solved, is because racism and bigotry exists here where we're watching the show. And that's the point. So they have to sort of have it both ways, where they say, yeah, it's the future and everything's great and we've solved all humanity's problems and there's no poverty and there's no war on Earth and everything is great. Oh, but hey, androids need rights, right? They have to make up like a new form of oppression so that they can write stories about how racism is fucked up so that we watching it can get the message, so that's why.
I think that's kind of dehumanizing in a way, though, that they would focus on a robot, an android, rather than, like an actual, like, organic species. I mean, it gives me feels. I don't know. I'm reminded of a scene from The Matrix, the Animatrix short, the Second Renaissance. By the way, trans people are coming to reclaim The Matrix. That is our film. Anyone who wants to dismantle unjust hierarchies and unjust systems of control, that is our film. It doesn't belong to fucking men's rights activists. It's our movie.
You know the red pill, all you red pill people out there?
Estrogen. You're taking estrogen.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that what
when
that
the
was?
When The Matrix came out in 1999, the pills, which are now blue, were red.
But getting back to what I was talking about with the Second Renaissance, there was a scene where there's a woman, and it's a really violent scene, and it's nightmare fuel for me, because the first time I saw it, even before I had come out and transitioned, I was getting ready to deploy to Iraq when I first saw it. It shook me to my core, and there's a woman who's being viciously attacked, and you hear someone off camera say, "I've got something for you," and then the camera kind of pans, and you see someone with a hammer, and they hit her in the head with a hammer, and you realize she's a robot, and her dying words are distorted and painful, "I'm real," and I feel that on such a visceral level with my interactions with anti-trans bigots. Like I'm constantly having to tell people, I'm real, I am human, I deserve rights just for that fact alone, and you cannot deny them to me for these fucked up reasons that you're trying to, when all the science says that you're fucking wrong.
All right, and speaking of science, our next question is from Sosh Toff. I'm gonna go with Sosh.
Wait, Fong?
Close enough. Can we do this again soon?
Yes, please.
Yeah,
Yes.
I definitely want this to be a thing. like not necessarily with just me involved, but just like, you know, getting other people's voices out there that aren't just fucking Matt Dillahunty and Aaron Ra and you know, rationality rules types.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
I
the usual cult of personality
I
atheist
want
types.
I want more diverse voices, not just in the sense that you know, for tokenism, because that's terrible, but in the sense of, you know, these are real people's real lives, and these are real issues that they really deal with on a day-to-day basis. And I don't think a lot of privileged people understand that. And I definitely want to, you know, see this happen more, where YouTubers who have big audiences host these kinds of discussions. Like, it doesn't have to be like a series, but it, you know, it could just be a thing that happens more.
And just speaking for me, two things: I always need more content, and two, I always need more Alix.
And can I just throw? I'll do a plug for somebody else. Larry and Bethany's podcast, Human Tolerant News, is a great show to hear different voices. You know, I actually remember PZ is in the live chat, and PZ asked a question that we'll get to in a minute, I'm sure. But I remember there was a show that I was invited to, because I've been on Larry's podcast about half a dozen times now, and you're
a co-host at this point.
and there was a show, not the last time I was on, but maybe the time before, where Larry put out like a call of like, hey, I need a guest for the next show. Anybody up for it? And I think I said, yeah, I'll do it. And PZ said, I'll do it. And Larry, in what I think was a terrible mistake, said to PZ, oh, maybe next time if Steve's going to do it, then I don't need another cis person.
No, I believe my exact words were something to the effect of, we don't need more than two bearded white guys.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it was something like that. It was like, we need, there are enough people like us on the show, so, you know, we won't do it this time. But you should have gone with PZ. But the sentiment was excellent.
I will tell you when I should have had PZ. The last episode we did, I should have had PZ, and you know exactly why. And you know exactly.
Talk about squid on that episode?
Do what?
Was there talk about squid on that episode?
Nope, spiders.
Oh.
But more detail than that, you'll have to listen to it. But for more. Okay. So the next question is actually from PZ Myers and Wellington Smith. I'll get to your question after this, to break up the topics a bit. But PZ's question is statement and question. The problem is structural. We have an atheist hierarchy that is not built on humanist criteria, with profit-making mechanisms that monetize fascism. How can we break that down?
Milkshakes. That's one way. I mean, I talked about direct action a lot, and that gets stuff done. That gets the goods. So that's what I'm gonna go with.
Yeah, encourage. Yes, and I would say encourage other people to not support fascists or white supremacists or bigots in general. Don't support them yourselves, and just be a lot. If at all possible for you, because it's not possible for everybody, but if at all possible for you, make your voice heard in the strongest way that you can, and say, you know, if this is the kind of thing you're going to do, then you're not going to have my support. You know, and if you happen to have a platform yourself, like a YouTube channel or a podcast or a blog or a Twitter account with a lot of followers, like put that message out there, you know, draw that line in the sand, plant that flag, and say, if this is what you're going to do, then I'm out of here, you know. And I feel like because when that has happened, it has gotten results. You know, if it happens at a large enough volume, you know, if enough people complain, then the people, that's what I keep saying. I say, you have to fuck with their money. When you fuck with their money, then they change real quick.
And it gets all sticky.
Yeah.
Oh, and Alex, you seem like you have something you want to say?
Yeah. I want to agree with Steve, you know, aggressively agree with Steve. No, because this is something that I've been asked this question for about 6 years. Like, what do we do about it? And I look at the board and how do we get inclusion and inclusivity on these boards, and how do we get representation? It's like, stop voting with your dollar, right? Because that's what you're doing, right? Every time that you wind up putting your interest over mine, that's what you do. And that's really what it winds up being. It's your self-interest versus, and for a lot of people, it's the payment or reward of being told that they're right about something in communities where they're always told that they're wrong. That that affirmation that happens is really, it's a powerful narcotic. It's not quite what I call hipster nectar, which is organic IPA. That's hipster nectar. But it's really damn close. It really is. It's really damn close. And so it's exactly why, people continue to, support these organizations. It's they get the money. It's why so many YouTubers or atheist celebrities continue to court larger and larger audiences that would close the door on me. Or why I'll go on a major YouTuber's platform and get attacked, and there's like this much that's actually said, because you don't want to ruffle the your donors. That's your income. And so I guess the answer is, you got to get to a point.
Oh gosh, I hear dogs and I don't hear Alex. Oh gosh, Alex froze.
Uh-oh.
Oh noes.
For a moment, I thought he was just being polite and letting the dogs have a say.
Yeah, well, I was going to say they stopped barking, but no, they have not. But no,
To be quite honest with you, it's very rude of the dogs to interrupt Alex.
Well, while Alex is gone, I've got something I kind of want to talk about. There's the title card that I made for this talk that I thought was really, I don't know, I like doing things in off-brand Photoshop, I'm going to call it, because I don't like the name, but I had 4 buzzwords: unity, solidarity, kindness, and compassion. And I think that at the end of this, one idea that I really want people to take away is the idea that we should be unified on our commonalities and focused on supporting the people who are most affected by religious extremism. Because I've seen it, and I've seen this in so many activist spaces, not just atheist spaces, but I hate using this word, but liberal spaces. I've seen it a lot in liberal spaces. I've seen it a lot in like, it's basically this idea that marginalized people asking to be treated like people are the ones who are causing division.
Right.
And we are not causing division just by asking to be treated like people. We any division that happens because people with privilege along a certain axis deny the humanity of people with oppression along a certain axis. And this goes into like intersectional feminist theory, and I really was trying to keep this simple, so that people could understand it. But what it comes down to is uniting on our commonalities to fight the systems of oppression that are out there, of white supremacy, of anti-trans bigotry, of misogyny, of and the whole climate thing. Because like I said, if we don't fix that, nothing else matters. So, and like, we should be working on all of these things at once now. So that's something that that's the thing I think that was in my head earlier that I wanted to say.
And I'm glad you said it. Also, there's one thing there's one question that I want to make sure we get to.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This one's from Kali, who I believe is some kind of goddess, so praise be.
Still an atheist.
As a as a homebound person, leftist, atheist, trans, non-binary, they them, due to a chronic illness, what can I do to help from home?
What I'm doing, I'm making podcasts, I'm writing stuff, I got this podcast thing put together, this live stream, whatever, put together. I feel everything that you just said about this person on a deep, visceral level, and because I have chronic illness, I have chronic pain, I have chronic fatigue, my back is killing me, and I'm tired, and I really want to just lay down, but I'm trying to keep myself up because I want to be here and I want to do this work, and even if you can't, like just you being you and you just existing is revolutionary in and of itself, especially in this world where there's so much hate and prejudice out there. So, there's a phrase in leftist circles: you are worth more than your productivity. And like I said, one of the two premises I'm running on is the inherent worth and dignity of every person. So, like I said, do what you can, with social media to get the message out there, to get people to, who can get out of the house, who can get up and do stuff, get that message out there and encourage them to do that work. And even if you can't, even if you're tired, even if you just want to, even if the only thing you get out of bed to do is to go to the bathroom or to get a sandwich, that's awesome in and of itself. So, yeah.
Yeah. And another thing that you can do is, like, if you've got a Twitter account or something, or even just an account on Facebook, share articles that talk about this sort of thing, and all that sort of thing. It helps in little ways, and every little does help. I mean, I sometimes feel like I'm not doing enough, but
Bethany, I can tell you right now, as far as our show is concerned, you are doing more than enough.
Oh, thank you.
You're
But,
damn near
yeah,
running it at this point.
Oh, well, that is one thing I do. I do host a podcast with Larry, and I also write a webcomic, which I'll probably plug that at the end of this. But one of the things, yes.
One more thing, and then I'll let you go. Listener question from Jamie J. Actually, two questions. Does Bethany know they have a positively adorable icon, and can someone make sure Bethany knows this?
Aw. Well, thank you.
I can't speak for what Bethany knows, but I have made sure to tell Bethany that her icon is adorable.
Mm.
I mean, it is.
That is, in fact, that is Delta Starfire. She is a character from my comic, and my comic it's about many things, but one of the things that is a running theme throughout it, that has always been part of it, is social justice, and I like to think that that's a small way in which I'm contributing.
It's good stuff.
So
When
I
it
mean,
helps me.
Right.
Thanks. So yeah, I mean, if you have some creative talents, see about putting it towards this if you can in some way.
Oh yeah, you first, Steve.
No, okay. Well, I was just going to say another thing to consider is it counts when you do it in your everyday life too. I mean, Comrade Nautica mentioned earlier when she was talking a while ago about, if you specifically about transphobia, if you hear someone doing something transphobic, say something in the moment. And I think you can do that for anything that we've been talking about. And it might be just a little tiny thing, but it helps. I know that, like, the things that when I look back on my life at the ripe old age of 39, the things I'm most embarrassed about and the things I wish I could take back or have to do again and get right are the times when someone said something racist or said something homophobic or said something transphobic or bigoted in some other way in front of me, and I didn't say anything. And I wish that I could change those things more than I wish I could change any YouTube video I ever made or anything I ever said on social media, because I felt like those were the times when I really failed as a person. You know, when I was there, I was physically there, and I, as someone that they knew, and maybe someone that they trusted, or someone that they at least respected, or whatever, another person in their life, I could have said, that's not cool. Don't say that. Don't talk like that around me. You know, don't use those words. Don't express those attitudes. That's messed up, and that's inexcusable. And if someone says it's a little tiny thing, but you know, if you can't get out of the house, if you can't be involved in activism in the ways we've been talking about here, and you just have someone in your life who says something out of turn like that, you know, try if you can do it, if it's possible, if you know that counts. You know, that's not nothing to say, hey, wait a minute, don't say that. You know, that counts for a lot. And you'll definitely be able to sleep a lot better at night. Take it from me. Because the times when I have said things to people in those situations where like the moment when I was saying it, it's a very nerve-wracking experience, because you're having like a possible confrontation with someone, but you feel a lot better afterwards than you do if you don't say anything. You know, so that's something to consider too.
Yeah, I can't remember how it goes exactly, but there is a phrase that I heard one time: speak up even if your voice trembles.
Speaking of things that make us
Absolutely.
tremble, question to panel: Elder Scrolls Online or World of Warcraft, from Wellington Smith?
Oh, easily.
Final Fantasy Online.
Final Fantasy 14 for me.
Fair.
I like both 11 and 14, but
I haven't tried 11.
Right now I don't have the money to do either of them, and that sucks. That's why you should support my Patreon, so that I can play video games. I might even stream them or something. I don't know.
Yes, and y'all should support me for the same reason, but I don't stream, so you won't have to see me, so you won't have to see.
Full disclosure, I should say the only reason I voted ESO is because it's the one that I've actually played the most of. I have played a tiny bit of WoW, and I do have an open offer to get back into it for very little money, which I may exploit at some point, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I might change that vote in the future.
Oh gosh. Okay, so I just realized there was a message from Alex in our Facebook group chat that it said that the internet went down. So that's
Yeah,
why
I saw.
he disappeared. So just letting everyone else know.
And
Yeah, Larry's dogs did not harm Alex. Alex is okay.
Good.
My dogs might lick someone to death, but that's about it.
Well, if Alex can't make it back this evening, I'd just like to thank him very much for participating. with
Yes,
us
thank
this
you,
evening.
Alex.
It was a
Yes,
very
absolutely.
great pleasure to have him on tonight.
Yes.
Come back on. I love you.
Okay, Larry might be fangirling a little.
Oh, I may or may not have did a massive fanboy squeal when you told me Alex actually said yes to this earlier.
Yeah, I to be honest with you, Alex is a bit of a hero of mine, and I was a bit nervous about approaching him, but he was very cool about it, and he was fantastic on the show. I would love to have him on a show. Oh, is this a show?
It is, yes. It is a show.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a show. People can
Okay.
watch it, so
Not
it's a show.
It's a movement.
Yeah.
I mean, this is part of it. It's a show that is also part of hoping to snowball something of a movement. So yeah,
Yeah,
better atheism.
But yeah,
And welcome
Alex, it was a delight to have you on, and hopefully we can do something again with you.
I want to
Yes.
mirror everyone else's adoration of Alex and magnify it and say that I really appreciate the time that I got to spend listening to him and learning from him.
Mhm.
And it has impacted how I'm going to move about the world now. I mean, most of the stuff that he said, I've heard from other people of color, and it sucks and it's terrible. But you know, I mean, it's just we've got to do better. Us white people, we've got to do better. There's no excuse. So
Yeah,
there's my white trader card.
Yeah, well,
I
you know,
would just
go
I'd
ahead.
just like to echo that sentiment, because I learned so much about race relations in the United States from Alix that I'd never known before, from basically listening to him at least trying to school David Smalley about it on his show. I don't know how much sank in, though, to be quite honest with that guy.
If I could direct y'all to the lower part of your Google
He's
screen.
back.
He's back.
Yay!
Hello.
Were your ears burning? We were talking about you.
Oh, really? Oh, no, not at all.
All good things.
Nothing
good.
bad, I assure you.
Alex, they were all kissing your ass, and I was like, you guys got to play it cool, okay? You got to be cool, but you know.
Yeah, I didn't say anything about you at all. No, never. I would never say anything.
I do want to do one thing that came to mind. I do want to do kind of a call to action for atheists who have large platforms. Platform people of color. Platform Black people. Platform Indigenous people. Platform disabled people. Platform trans people. Give queer people a platform. You know, not just your token friends. People who are, you know, actually talking about real stuff. Please.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, so
And
what?
listen.
Yes.
Listen to what people are telling you.
Especially if that thing is, you're being racist. Stop being racist.
Mm-hmm.
So, Alex, now that you're back, do you have anything you want to add? Did you learn anything in not having internet land?
No, I think I think I covered what I really wanted to cover earlier, which is, I mean, it's just being repeated. Listen, give us the platform. A little bit of humility goes a long way. Just because you happen to be right about one thing doesn't mean that you're right about it all. And you know, and it's not that I'm pushing my experience does have a lot to do with the way I think, etc. But you know, often when we're talking about things that people just are not knowledgeable about, you know, your opinion isn't the same as my experience and the volumes of data that are out there. And I wish, if nothing else, I mean, if we stopped the hero worship, lauding people for just the wrong thing, and really treated each other as individuals, as so much of the atheist community likes to tell them, is like, oh, why can't we just look at and evaluate people as individuals? It's like that's great. When are you going to start? So yeah, exactly. I think that would go a long way in deconstructing the cult-like worship mentality that I find in a lot of segments. Because some dude that says, "Hey, I mean seriously, I'm not going to talk to someone about I don't want to name names. So okay, so you are a host and you are really good at debating other Christians. Got it. I'm trying to understand that, and you may be an expert in that, but when it comes to the race topic and the vast amount of sociological evidence and theories that just drive who we are, I know that you haven't spent any time at all whatsoever, academically or otherwise, studying that. So you know, let's. If I want to date another Christian, I'll come to you. But you tell me not to talk about race, regardless of what I bring to the table, then maybe you shouldn't either. So that's my 2 bits.
You know, oh my gosh, I had a thing. It was in my brain. Now it's gone again. I hate my brain. I mean, I love my brain. It does really good work, but sometimes it doesn't work as well as I would like. Give me a sec. Nope, I lost it. I'm sorry. It was good. It was really good.
You know, it'll come back 2 seconds after we hang up.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. But it's so frustrating and it's so daunting. And this hangout thing has been super helpful for my mental health, for helping me feel like I'm actually doing something, you know, and I'm so grateful for that. And also the fact that we are doing something. And so yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of rambling at this point. Do we have any other questions?
There are a few, but well, yeah, there's a few.
Okay, let's answer the ones we've got, and then let's you know, sign off, I guess.
I mean, when I say a few, I mean exactly two. I mean,
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
What are they?
okay. Well, actually, three technically. There was one from PC Myers earlier, but this one.
Wait! I remember what it was. The people with privilege need to be like that scene in Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, where they're like, "You have my sword and my bow and my axe. You have my microphone. You have my podcast. You have my YouTube channel. You have my Facebook page.
You have my awkward sense of humor."
And it's okay if you're the person who pops up at the last minute and says, "Great, where are we going?"
Oh, it isn't in my list here, but PC Myers asks, and let's try and keep this one short because there are two other questions.
Yes,
but it's who's all going to Skepticon? I am not, because that involves travel.
I'm broke, so no,
Yeah.
I'm not.
I too am broke, and I also live in Scotland, so it would be even more expensive for me to get there.
What? Just ship yourself here in a UPS crate. It'll be easy.
Yeah, I'm not going either. Same reason.
Just saying, like if it worked for Solid Snake and his booty is dummy thick and the claps of his ass keeps alerting the guards, like, you should be fine. I'm sorry. I like, if I talk about crates, I have to mention Metal Gear Solid.
Unfortunately, I'm thinking it'd be more like Tyrion Lannister being shipped out of Westeros at the end of season 5 of Game of Thrones.
Oh,
wait, no, that was season 4.
Gosh, I haven't seen it. Why are you spoiling things for me? Anyway,
sorry.
Alex, are you going to Decepticon?
I'm not entirely sure just yet. I'd like to, but I may just have too much stuff going on to actually make it this year.
Cool. What's the next question?
The next question is from Naughty Word at Steve Shives. I'm a Marxist in the U.S. How do I stop from being overly cynical of the political process that I deep down find utterly pointless compared to a worker revolution?
You don't stop being cynical about that because you're a Marxist. Like, that's kind of being cynical about the political process is kind of part of it, right? Like, you just want to get rid of it. You're like, let's just get rid of this and just do something else, right? I'm not the best person to ask because, as some random geek will tell you, I am far from an expert on Marxism or socialism, although I am broadly supportive, you know. But yeah, just in general, I mean, it's difficult to say, like, how do you stop being cynical about a political process that you don't really fully believe in? You know, like, so I would never try to preach to a Marxist, like, here's what you have to do. Here's what you have to embrace about our political process that you regard as the problem, right? That's not for me to, you know, you clearly have ideas about that, that I have no right to say, like, come on, you just have to vote more, kid. You know, like, that's probably not going to do it. If in general, I would say, if possible, try to participate in the process more. You know, try to find candidates at whatever level, local elections, state elections, federal elections, that you feel represent you and represent your point of view, that you would like to see elected, you know, and try to get involved in the process more personally, if you can, if that's something that you're able to do. But beyond that, I don't really know. And again, I mean, if you can find a fellow Marxist who is less disillusioned than you are, ask them what their trick is, you know. But I'm not that guy, unfortunately.
All right. And,
I have something to say on this topic. I know it's not directed at me, but as someone who could be classified as a Marxist, I don't like that word because I don't like being tied down to dead white guys. I just think that we should feed and house people, and that we should tailor production to meet human need, and that kind of falls in line with some of what Marx was saying. But I mean, it's a bag. It's a weird bag of stuff. I engage with the political process in a very different way than a lot of other people do, and that is through direct action and sit-ins, and my experience has been that it gets results. We in summer of 2017, my Poor People's Campaign people know it was 2018. It was last year. We sat in at Chris Kobach's office when he was Secretary of State. We got locked out of the governor's office, and we had, because Congress wasn't in session, we had all the media attention on us. The state legislature wasn't in session. We had all the media attention on us, and we got to control the narrative, and we got to tell our story the way we wanted to tell it. And so it's about a lot more than voting. It's about, putting the feet of people in power to the fire.
so it's a wibbly wobbly timey wimey ball of stuff.
No, I mean, I was talking about very specific things.
I know. I just couldn't resist the Doctor Who reference.
Okay.
Our last question is from Mark Hyde. How can we deal with the problems YouTube creates when it seems to side with bigots over those who call them out, not touching Crowder, but others get demonetized?
That's an issue I can't speak on because I'm not a YouTuber. I mean, I post stuff on our YouTube channel, but the only like real videos that I'm planning on doing are like stop motion animation cartoons, because that's kind of a passion project of mine. But I'm not like, that's a whole bag of worms I'm not sure how to deal with.
Yeah. Honestly, I assume this one's more aimed at Steve, and he is far more familiar with YouTube than I ever want to be.
I would just say if I knew how to effectively deal with it, it wouldn't be as much of a problem. You know what I mean? Like there are times when I wish I had. There are times when I wish I had the influence that people who hate me think I have. Because it was like, yeah, I would totally ban that guy. Like if it was up to me, if YouTube would like call me for advice and be like, oh, what should we do about all the white supremacists and all the sexists? Oh, just ban them. Just get rid of them. Right? Problem solved. Ban his channel. But yeah, make noise. Talk about it. Especially if you are a YouTuber. Make videos about it, tweet about it, post about it on whatever social media you have. However big of a following you have, let them know about it, and let YouTube know about it. Like the current thing with Crowder would not be a story at all if Carlos Massa had not talked about it, and if other people had not come in and retweeted him thousands of times and made it a story that YouTube could not ignore. And even though YouTube isn't really doing anything about it, they have at least been forced to address it. And maybe if they're forced to address it or things like that more often, they will eventually have to do something about it. That's the best I can say as a YouTuber who sees the problem and who agrees 100% that it is a problem and that it is just absolutely unacceptable that YouTube, especially, I mean, it's unacceptable any day of the year, any month of the year, but it's especially hard to swallow during Pride Month when YouTube has.
Damn it, Steve! You had to say hard to swallow. Really.
Larry, grow up, man.
I can't do that.
To be fair, we did invite Larry on this, and we know what he is.
That's true. It's really it's a collective guilt that we all share.
Exactly.
But no, it's true. Like it's YouTube has their Twitter icon is the rainbow play button. They're promoting all this pride stuff. They're talking about how like we're a platform that is open and supportive of the LGBTQ plus community, blah blah. And like a month ago, their CEO said, I'm in favor of responsibility, even if it comes at the cost of profitability, which is such transparent horseshit. You couldn't make it up if you tried. That is one of the most disingenuous, dishonest things I've heard a CEO of a company say in a very long time. And you can, and the evidence is, we saw it yesterday when Team YouTube got back to Carlos Mazza and said, yeah, we're not going to do anything about it. Sorry. Yeah, we know that some of the things that were said about you were hurtful, but it doesn't violate our policy. So sorry. And then after people still continued making noise about it, they came back today and said, well, we'll demonetize him. Like they take these little hesitant baby steps to deal with a problem that really they should have been trying to solve years ago, that everybody knows about. And everybody knows the reason that they're not solving it is because they want the money, which brings me back to what I said earlier. You've got to fuck with their money. That's the only way you're ever going to get them to do anything. Their social responsibility is a facade. They pretend to have social responsibility because they think that makes them more money. Yep. So if you fuck with their money and you say, no, you have to actually demonstrate social responsibility. You can't just say it and then expect us all to go, oh, that's nice. They posted some gay shit. They must have our best interest at heart. Like they need to actually, yeah, go ahead.
I have to interrupt just for this one comment from Sash in the chat. Swallowing is the least wasteful.
It's a very good point. It's a very good point, Sash.
Anyway, Steve, please continue.
I was pretty much done. That's just the whole idea is like, if YouTube says that it wants to be supportive of the LGBTQ plus community, that's great. But that's nothing. That means nothing if they don't actually do it. And,
I do.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Please, go ahead.
I do have something I want to say about something you said about like incremental changes. It works both ways. The action that people engage in to get YouTube to demonetize Steven Crowder, from what I'm understanding based on what you're saying, I mean, that took a lot of work from people saying, just ban him, just delete his shit, get him off your platform. He's terrible. And we should celebrate those wins, little though they are, not by praising YouTube, but by praising the people who, did the work to get that done. Yeah. And you can't, with this kind of stuff, you can't expect big change in a really short amount of time. We need big change in a short amount of time, but it's not realistic, unfortunately. And I think that's why a lot of people get burned out, because they get this idea. I mean, I've certainly been burned out because I was, expecting to get involved and, change the world. And it happens in small pushes. Conversely, the fascism creeps in small incremental ways as well. Like we've seen with what Trump has been doing to the trans community. I'm pulling up my notes here. Just a sec. I'm sorry. It's been, just in May alone, last month, May of 2019, we had, attacks on our access to healthcare and homeless shelters and housing from Housing and Urban Development and Health and Human Services Department. And then in April of 2019, we were banned from the military. In October of 2018, the Trump administration tried to define trans people out of existence by defining gender as an immutable character trait based on genitalia at birth. At December of 2017, the Trump administration tried to ban those 7 words from the CDC's official budget documents, one of which was transgender, 2 of which were science-based and evidence-based, which I heard jack shit from the skeptic community. That's a thing. And then on 16 October 2017, Trump said of Pence with regard to the LGBT community, don't ask that guy. He wants to hang them all. So, you know, it's these little things of creating a climate of fear and loathing towards marginalized groups, and trans people have been a target of it, and people of color have been a target of it, immigrants have been a target of it, and disabled people in some ways have been a target of it too, and it just, it hurts, and because you know, people who are in the know about this stuff, they see this train coming from a mile away, and they know it's coming, and they know that, hey, we need to get off the tracks, but there are people who won't acknowledge that the train is coming. It's kind of like a quote I know from Malcolm X, talking about a knife in someone's back. If you put a knife in someone's back and you pull it out 6 inches, that's not progress. You pull it out 9 inches, that's not progress. Progress doesn't happen until you start healing the wound that the blow made. And this so, you know, we should be thankful for the incremental process that does happen with regard to people who do the direct action work. That's kind of what I wanted to say with regard to that.
I personally think that the Malcolm X quote is a great place to stop. But if we want to keep going, we can keep going.
I'm all for stopping, but I have to mention again. I love the chat tonight. It's
what
it has been refreshing and healing for me. Thank you very much.
How? Oh well, I know we may have started one kind of movement. Apparently, swallowing has become an act of piracy.
Oh gosh, that's a thing.
An act of piracy.
I'm trying to find, I think, some random. Okay, from moderator Jamie J at some random geek. Did we just turn swallowing into a form of piracy? I'm so in. Then from some random geek, I think we did. I think.
I'm not a fan of piracy. As a minister at the Ministry of Nerd Culture Expropriation, I think that swallowing could be described as an act of expropriation.
There you go.
Whatever gets me laid. Whatever gets me.
Larry. Larry.
Anyway, this has been Humans. Wait, no, oh shit, no, sorry. It's not my show. Holy shit.
Okay,
you're going.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'll sign us off, I guess.
You know,
this has been a podcast in support of YouTube live stream in support of moving towards a better atheism, and we hope that you've enjoyed it. You know, support your trans and non-binary and people of color and immigrant and disabled content creators. And Alix, I want you to have the last word.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.